Thanks for staying with us on the news. Now, the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, presents a major opportunity for African countries to bring 30 million people out of extreme poverty and raise the incomes of 68 million others who live on less than $5.50 per day. With the implementation of AfCFTA, trade facilitation measures that cut red tape and simplify customs procedures will drive $292 billion of the $450 billion in potential income gains. Implementing AfCFTA then becomes imperative, as it would help usher in the kinds of deep reforms necessary to enhance long-term growth in African countries. And now joining us to look at the impact of the full implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area to Africa's economy is Dr. Obiora Madu, logistics and supply chain expert and Chairman Multimix Group. Thank you so much, Dr. Madu, for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you join us as well. Now, Dr. Madu, the full implementation of the AfCFTA has become imperative, as it will demonstrate to the world that Africa is an emerging leader in the global trade, and it would also reshape the market and the economies across the region. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do we ensure its full implementation to drive these benefits that I have just mentioned?
Thank you very much. The issue is that negotiations in respect of trade takes a while. I mean, the WTO took about 8 years in Uruguay before it crystallized into WTO, and negotiations have not stopped to date. So I think even right now, negotiation, particularly in the area of services, is still ongoing. Full implementation is very critical for Africa. In fact, to say something, we're actually in a hurry to ensure that that happens. All the projections you read out earlier are all expectations that will come out of it. But the truth is that it's not going to be that easy for us to get to the full implementation, because subnational governments will have to do a whole lot of work on their own side. Port reforms are very, very necessary for us to see what to expect. Issues like capacity building within the, and then also incentives for SMEs, because it is the SMEs that are going to drive the implementation of that. So we need policy reforms among countries, because the best time you can talk about full implementation is when we become a single custom union within Africa. We have dealt with tariffs and the rest of them, but a lot of barriers are still there. A lot of protectionism are still there. So the truth is that it is not going to happen like magic. It is going to take a while. Transactions have commenced already on AfCFTA, and so many nations are yet to key in. They are all preparing. So the full implementation will actually make it a lot easier for almost all the countries to join at the same time. But we need it. We need to exploit the fact that it's a 1.4 billion people market, the single largest African market in the world. So, but the fact is a lot of work in the area of infrastructure, in the area of policy reforms, and breaking of bureaucracy.
Right.
For full implementation.
Okay, Doctor, also, as important as trade amongst African countries are, we must also consider the internal economy as well. How do we ensure that there is a balance within the internal economy?
Okay, I didn't mention about protectionism earlier. You find out that every country is still trying to make sure they're protecting themselves. Some Nigerian businessmen are being harassed in Ghana. There are so many non-tariff barriers that are there. So the thing about is for every country to try to develop their economy, because in this global world, your competitors are not your next door neighbors. Everyone is your competitor. specifications in the global market is for everyone. There's none for third world countries and none for second world countries. So that means that subnational governments must intentionally develop their own economy before we can all integrate into a well-developed AfCFTA that will help with intra-African trade, which is currently abysmal, and then also enable us to contribute meaningfully to the entire global trade. So it is something that there must be intentionality as far as subnational government is concerned. I don't think there's much you can do about that. But when the infrastructures emerge, it will also assist subnational governments to prepare. But protectionism is not the way to go.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Thank you once again.
My pleasure.